basically means that the world is in your favor. I'm 20 years old, I'm studying neuroscience and finance in an American university, and I came here when I was only 17 years old. I learned English in less than a year. I came here, and last year I almost got kicked out of my university because I couldn't pay, but I overcome all those challenges. Everything is about mindset and how we focus our attention to things. But with what you can, with what you have, where you are. 3, 2, 1, action. Hello everyone, welcome to my podcast. My name is Caroline and this is Pronoia. So before I start, I wanted to explain why the name of the podcast, because it will explain a lot what is my goal with this podcast. So Pronoia. So I have my computer here, so I will read it. Pronoia describes a state of mind that is the opposite of paranoia. Whereas a person suffering from paranoia feels like that person or that persons or entities are conspiring against them, a person experiencing paranoia believes that the world around them conspires to do good to them. So basically, paranoia means that we are thinking all the time that the world is with us, like the universe is acting in my favor, and that everything I do, everyone that I meet in my life is to help me and for my good. So why it means to me? Well, from my past experience and from what I have lived so far, I have discovered that we are what we think. And I know a lot of people hear this quote and they're like, okay, whatever, the law of attraction and all this crap. Well, it's more than that. I feel like these kind of subjects about motivational books or motivational speakers and people who are spiritual and all those things, they talk a lot about, oh, you have to think good, so good things happen to you. The law of attraction, you have to manifest and all those things. But I don't think people really understand what that means. And I don't think they have done a good job explaining everything, right? Because yeah, if someone tells you, oh, just think that you're going to win the lottery and you will, or just think that you're going to be a millionaire and you will, it's not that easy. It has more things connected to it. And I don't understand people take the time to understand what those things are. So we are what we think, but it's not because of magic. It's because of science. And I'm currently studying neuroscience, so I love the brain and I love how everything works. And I will talk about that a little bit later in this episode. But basically, our brains, actually I have a brain here. So this is a small brain. But basically, our brains focus on what we think, right? So we have 1,000 of thoughts a day, approximately 60,000 thoughts a day. So we have so many that we cannot even control them as much. But what we can do is like kind of aggregate them in groups. So if we're always thinking that, have you heard the story of like if someone thinks of a red car, they will probably see a red car, but not because of magic. It's because you have shifted your attention to look for a red car. That's the same with everything else. If you think of good things happening to you, if you think like, oh my God, I'm gonna find $1 in the street when I'm walking, well, you're gonna put your attention so much into finding that you eventually will find it. It's the same in the opposite way. If you're all the time thinking like, what is happens to me, all bad things happen to me and all those things, of course those things are going to happen to you, not because you're unlucky, it's because you're focusing your attention on that. And that's when neurons are created. And there is a quote that says, neurons that wire together fire together, meaning that if you have a thought, if you do something constantly, it becomes a routine, it becomes a habit because of that. So everything that we think, we attract into our life because we're focusing in those things. Okay. So what is the goal of my podcast? Well, the goal of this podcast is basically to help other people to take control of their life and to find a goal that inspires them to fight for their dreams. I want to be inspired, I want to inspire other people, and I want to share my story from what I have learned so far. I know I'm still really young, but I have learned a couple of things and I always, of course, I'm still learning. But from what I have learned, I want to share. Maybe it helps someone, you never know. And also to improve maybe the confidence that people have and also the results they have in life. Again, I'm a very young person. And of course, barely people who are older might think, what is this girl knows? But I have my life, I have experienced some things, and my story is unique as everyone else's. So I just want to share my point of view, my perspective, and what I have learned in these years of life. So who is this podcast directed to? Well, it's directed to everyone from all ages. Doesn't matter your background, your nationality, whatever else, doesn't matter. I just hope that someone can find some value in this podcast somehow. And yeah, that's my goal. I'm always also open to feedback or suggestions or things like that. And of course, I know I'm still learning, so maybe there is a lot of things that I don't do as right or I can improve, and that's completely fine with me. So now, who I am, what I'm speaking, what I have learned in life that I want to share with other people. So my name is Caroline. I'm 20 years old. I'm from Spain, but currently I'm in the US. Maybe you have noticed my accent because English is my second language. And currently I'm studying in an American university. I'm a junior, so this is my third year in college. And I'm studying neuroscience. I love the brain. I love everything. I love psychology. I want to be a doctor, but I love the brain. I love psychology too, but I wanted something more scientific. I feel like psychology is great, but a lot of things is based on theories and like behavior and all those things. But I wanted to know like the background, like why we act like we act. Yeah, I know for behaviors, but why is that? So I'm always I'm a very curious person, so I wanted to learn more about those things, and that's why I decided to major in neuroscience, which I love. But besides that, I'm also studying finance. I recently decided to major in finance because I think it's really important to know about how money works, regardless of your profession, your major, whatever you do in life. And I just wanted to have that kind of knowledge. Maybe in the future I do something related with finance too. I'm always open to everything. So yeah, I'm majoring in those two things, and I'm kind of involved in a lot of things regarding those two majors. I came to the USA when I was only 17 years old, so that was almost 4 years ago. I came in 2020, so I came during the pandemic, which was an interesting experience, and here I am, still here. I also learned English by myself in less than a year. So I started speaking English when I was 16, and I learned watching movies, which is also other story that I will explain in the future. And I'm also a first generation college student, which is something I'm very proud of. And I'm always trying to learn and take opportunities, and definitely work hard to pay for my education. So yeah. So you'll think, what have you learned in 20 years of life? Well, you will be surprised. Of course, everyone has a different life, and every life is unique. But from my experiences and from what I have lived and everything, I have learned that life is not easy, of course, but life is really short, and life brings a lot of challenges. And I have realized that how we react to those challenges determine our results, right? It's like our attitude. There is a lot of things that we cannot control in life, but there is something that we can control, which is our behavior, our reactions, how we act towards those things. And I think this is more just than a cool quote to say. I think is more deep than that. I think that in order to have success in life, you need to know how you think, how you react, how you act with other people. I have realized a lot of people watch movies, read books, do a lot of things, but they don't know who they are. They don't know who they are. They don't know how they think. They don't know anything of those things. And how can you perform well? How can you achieve things if you don't know who you are, right? And besides all those things, currently I'm working in college to pay for my school, and it's not easy, but here I am. But I'm working as an inclusion assistant, which, if you don't know, in college you can be an RA, a similar an RA, which is a resident assistant. A resident assistant is someone who lives in the dorms, who's also a student, and who basically its job is to make sure other residents are alive and they're fine. In the USA, people live in colleges. They live in the college. So, of course, if you have if you put a bunch of 18-year-olds in the same building living together, there's a lot of conflicts that may happen and different things they go through. So you need someone who's a little more mature, not more mature, but someone who can help them go through those challenges. And that's the job of the resident assistant. I'm an inclusion assistant, which is kind of similar but slightly different, because the inclusion assistant, my job basically is make sure that residents are fine, but also that they feel included, that they feel they have found a community in their residence hall, in their building, on campus, because it's really important when you go to college, especially in the USA. I have friends and family who go to university in Spain, and that's not the same because they don't live in the college. They live in their own homes and they commute to go to college. So it's something very unique that, at least in the US, is really common. So also through my interactions with a lot of people and other people that I have met around the world also, I have realized that you need to know who you are. You need to know how you behave and how you behave and how you act around other people and also around yourself when no one is looking. So yeah, I just wanted to touch a little bit on that. So what you will learn in this thing, kind of said about it, I feel like our attitude towards those challenges is what determines our results. And what I hope others to learn from these things is to have a goal in mind, but to have a plan to achieve it. I feel like a lot of mistakes that people assume when they read motivational books is they say, have a visualization board, which you should. But not only that, you have to have a plan. You have to follow different steps to make that thing reality. I came to the US. My dream was to come to the US, okay? And I was obsessed with it. Like, I'm like, I need to go to the US. I want to finish high school in the US. I am so passionate about it, but I didn't have any money. My family didn't have any money, and I didn't know any English. Of course, just positive thinking wasn't gonna do anything. So I decided to take action. If it was actually my dream, I was gonna do something about it. But of course, I didn't have money, as I said before, and my parents didn't have money to hire a private tutor to teach me English or any of those things. So I thought, okay, what is under my control? Under my control is my actions. So what I decided to do, I decided to learn English by myself, and I did that in less than a year by watching movies and by using the internet and taking a bunch of notes and just talking with myself, because no one in my family speaks English. So I was just talking to myself. I probably have videos about it, but I was probably saying like blah 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 blah. Like, I have no idea what I was saying, but I was putting that effort, and eventually I kind of started understanding a little bit more, and I started practicing a little bit more and started pronouncing things a little better. Of course, I'm always learning. But I did that, okay, which helped me to cover that part of learning English, which was a huge barrier. And the other one was the money. I didn't have that money. So what I decided to do was to look for scholarships. And I found a great scholarship. I thought I was gonna win it. I thought I was a great applicant, and I was. But sadly, I didn't got it. And I was so sad and so depressed. And I was like, are you kidding me? Because I already have everything planned, and in the last minute, I didn't got the scholarship. So I was really sad, and I thought that, well, okay, I'm just gonna probably give up. Maybe I will go into the USA when I'm older and have a family, whatever. But something inside of me couldn't let that happen. Something inside of me was like, you have to do something. Like, you cannot just give up. Like, look for another way. So after a couple of months, just basically kind of trying to forget about the idea of going to the US, I thought, no, I need to go. So I started looking for other scholarships. Of course, it wasn't as much money as the other one was offering, but I started looking, and then I found one which was really good, which covered around 70%. Because the other one that I didn't win was a full ride, which hurt a lot. But this one was a 70%, which helped a lot. And then I collected savings from over a year, and then my parents helped me out with the rest of it. So, of course, this is just one of story, and I know people might have different life experiences, but my point is not just having a goal in mind, it's also having a plan and taking action. The action is the most important part that I don't think people realize. And if you don't have a plan, if you don't take action, doesn't matter how much you daydream about your goals, you're not gonna achieve them. So yeah, this is just an introduction to my podcast. I have a bunch of stories to tell, a bunch of things I want to do with this podcast. So what should you expect? Well, I want to share my reflections, my stories, things that I have learned. Also, with my life being in the US and also in Spain and things like that, and the people I have met. And also, I love to read books. I started reading books since I was 14, 13 years old. Motivational books. I don't really read a lot of fiction. And I thought I could do some book reviews or just talk about what I have learned from some books. I still would recommend you to read those books because a podcast is not gonna substitute the fact that you're reading a book, because I believe there is a huge influence when you're actually sitting and moving the pages of a book and taking notes. That's something unique that nothing will replace that. But I do think that when you have a book review and someone talks about a book, maybe you see it from a different perspective and you learn something else, or it inspires you to actually get the book and read it. So I'm thinking about doing book reviews because I probably have read more than 100 books, some pretty good books, so I want to share that with you too. And hopefully in the future, if not, when this podcast grows, hopefully, I would love to bring some speakers just to have an interaction and learn from them too. I love to talk to people. So hopefully we can do that in the future as well. And that's why you have to give love and support to this podcast. So I bring people, and you can also leave in your comments who should I bring or things like that. And also a lot of self-reflection. I love to talk with myself, and from the interactions I have with other people, other people have actually told me, oh, you should just start a podcast because you really have good points or this or that. I didn't start a podcast because of that. I started this podcast because I feel like I have an amazing opportunity of studying in the US and learning so many things that I could share with other people. You know, maybe this is not a podcast for you, but maybe it's from someone else. Maybe it's from someone who is 14, 20, 30, 50 years old, and maybe something clicks on them. And I would love to help other people in that sense. Also, because when I was a teenager, which feels like a long time ago, but I'm only 22. I'm only 20. But when I was a teenager and I wanted to go to the USA, I didn't know anyone or didn't know any English or anything about it. So my way to learn more about the culture was to watch YouTube videos. I watched so many YouTube videos of people doing exchange years and their experience and all those things. And now I'm actually experiencing those things. So I would love to give back and share my experience. So feed people who currently their dreams to go to the USA or just to study abroad or everything else, learn something from that, right? So I want to give back because at the time I was that person. So that's my goal. Another thing, so yeah, a lot of self-reflection and of course much love and fun. I hope that you learned something from this podcast. I hope that you can give me feedback, suggestions, things. And yeah, I just also wanted to make it very personal. I hope that you feel comfortable listening to me. I'm currently recording in my college dorm, as maybe you have seen, but I want it to be like a comfortable place, right? A place that you are just like, maybe you're cleaning your room, maybe you're walking to class, maybe you're working or something, and you just want to have a voice in the background. Well, I can be that person. Also, another thing is, I said before that I'm from Spain and I speak, of course, Spanish and English. So these podcasts are going to be both in both languages, in Spanish and in English. I'm going to probably post them in different days, but it's basically going to be the same podcast. I mean, of course, slightly different because I'm going to translate this word by word. I kind of have the idea in mind and then I will explain it with my own words. But this is going to be in Spanish and English. The main reason is because I love talking in English, and I love talking in English because I want to improve my English, because although I feel like I have a good level, I can always keep learning. So I love talking in English, and that's why I do this podcast in English. But at the same time, I have my parents and my family who they don't speak English, and a lot of times when I record videos or things, they always ask me, what do you say in this video? Can you translate it? And I'm like, yeah, of course. But I also thought that, so the main reason is I do it for them so they actually understand what I'm saying. And also for other people who are Hispanic, they speak Spanish and want to know what I'm talking about, they can also have the opportunity to watch it in Spanish, and people who speak English in English. And if you speak both, you can watch both videos. If you want to learn Spanish, you can watch my Spanish videos and maybe get that accent and the language inside your brain, so you learn a little bit more and you speak. If you want to speak English, maybe you can listen to this podcast. Also, I speak a little fast, so I will try to slow down and pronounce as much as I can, pronounce words properly as much as I can. So yeah, I'm gonna do both podcasts in Spanish and in English. So for today's video, it's just an introduction of who I am, what is this podcast about, and things like that. But I wanted to share this book that you should read. I probably will do podcast about it because it's an amazing book. It's one of my favorite books of all time, and I have read a lot of books, but it's called Think and Grow Rich. This is the Spanish version, called Piense y hágase rico, de Napoleon Hill. It's one of my favorite books. It's not about money. It can be about money, but it's not about money. It basically is about mindset and how you can achieve your goals, not by daydreaming, but actually by having a plan. So I would recommend you to read this 100%. But to end this video, I hope that you like it, you subscribe. Another thing I forgot to mention is that I actually have also my personal YouTube channel called Carolina HR or Caroline HR. Those are the initials of my last name, which is Hernandez Ruiz. A lot of people ask me that. People thought it meant HR, human resources, and I'm like, no, those are my initials of my last name, because Hispanic people usually have two last names, one from their dad and one from their mom. So those are my last names. It's a little longer, so I just abbreviate them with the initials. So my YouTube channel called Caroline HR. I talk about videos in my day-to-day life, how is my life in college, how I came to the US, how I learned English. It's just more what I'm learning. It's kind of like this. However, this podcast is usually a little longer. It's gonna be usually a little more thoughtful and more more thoughtful, more reflection, more kind of learning in a deeper way, and also to motivate you to achieve your dreams. In the other one, I'm sharing more of my experience in the US, what I have learned, what I haven't learned, and things like that. But of course, check it out. I will put in the description whatever you're watching this from. YouTube, Apple, Spotify, all those platforms. And one thing I'm gonna do in all my videos, I love quotes. I actually have a wall in my room full of quotes because I love quotes. I think they transmit a powerful message in just a couple of words, and it's kind of like a mantra. A mantra is a sentence that you repeat over and over and over again to put you in that state of mind. This is my definition of a mantra. If you want to know the definition of a mantra, Google it. But I love quotes, so at the end of each podcast, I'm gonna read a quote that hopefully you learn or you take from the video and things like that. So for today's quote, which is the first episode, which is so adorable, is "Do what you can with what you have where you are," by Theodore Roosevelt. What this quote means is, do what you can. When something happens to you and you're like, I don't know what to do, this is messed up, I don't have any solution, blah, blah, blah. It can be a huge problem or huge challenge that you're facing, but stop for a second and think, what can I do? Do what you can with what you have, okay? Many times we don't have the resources we should have or we need to solve that issue, but hey, reflect for a second. What do I have and what can I do with that? And also where you are. You know, sometimes we cannot do a lot of things because of our situation and where we are, but hey, do what you can with what you have where you are. Thank you guys. I will see you next time. Bye bye.